Previously on Halo 2. This time on Halo 2. The Arbiter. Once, it was considered the highest honor of the Covenant Armada. Chosen by the Prophet Hierarchs, they stood out as the most courageous, ruthless, and competent warriors in Covenant history, each one chosen in times of severe distress. Though this honorable position eventually transformed into a double-edged sword, a badge of shame, but also a chance for redemption. And in 2552, the former Supreme Commander of the Covenant's Navy would get his chance at redemption after he failed to safeguard Halo from the Master Chief, the Demon. Even after his brutal campaign against humanity, this single failure painted him as a heretic in the eyes of the High Council, stripped of his position, his honor, and his name, branded and sentenced to death. Waking up from his unconscious state, he didn't know what was worse, being branded by a 10-foot-tall naked albino ape, or being forced to stare at its ass as two hungry monkeys bickered with each other about eating his flesh. Nonetheless, he was gently escorted to the mausoleum of the Arbiter and offered a chance to become the Blade of the Prophets. Parallel to his death sentence, the Arbiter would be given suicidal tasks on behalf of the Prophets, allowing him a chance to redeem his name while simultaneously walking to his fated demise. Taking his stride forward and donning a helmet that awkwardly clipped through his lips, Arbiter had finally become the Arbiter. Wait. Arriving at a gas mine at the ruins of Installation 4, Arbiter drew his energy sword with confidence, eager to fight once again and show the Prophets that his competence as a warrior had not dwindled. Entering the facility and witnessing a sudden, awkward lighting transition, his fellow warriors activated their camouflage. Doing the same, he was swiftly met with an immeasurable level of disappointment as Beater told him his wouldn't last forever.
But take heed, your armor system is not as new as ours. Your camouflage will not last forever.
Though disappointing, Arbiter shrugged it off and wouldn't let it ruin his day. Arbiter chose to stealthily assassinate the first heretic, who was unaware that the glowing, floating energy sword that just approached him from the suddenly opened doors was actually the Arbiter. And somehow his screech of agonizing pain didn't alert anyone. Or that. Arbiter grew impatient and swiftly plunged himself into the heat of battle, eager to...
The tasks you must undertake as the Arbiter are perilous, suicidal. You will die, as each Arbiter has before you. The Council will have their corpse.
We are the arm of the Prophets.
Arbiter checked his surroundings, puzzled about what had just taken place. Bimbo was saying the same shit to him as before, and everything else happened all the same. It was unusual, but nonetheless, Arbiter repeated his actions, slaughtering unaware heretics before the main skirmish event had begun.
We are the arm of the Prophets, Arbiter, and you are the Blade.
Arbiter began to question his own senses. Yet, it all seemed too real. His morbid curiosity heightened by the second, until finally, he opted for the ultimate test. Jumping off the side of the station, Arbiter closed his eyes and... What power had he been gifted, and why? Had the Prophets bestowed him with some unique gift? Or was it the not-so-new armor? The Arbiter aimlessly thought through all of the possibilities as Mamba kept yapping, and then he realized, somehow the heretics killed him twice. How the fuck was that possible? He was one of the Covenant's most treasured instruments. How could a handful of heretics best him in combat? Arbiter soon got his answer when he saw his shields drop after a few shots from a needler-wielding grunt. Not only did his camouflage not last forever, it seemed as though his shields couldn't last for more than a second either. The words of mercy echoed through his mind.
You will die.
Maybe this is why the Arbiters always died in their missions. Not because the missions were suicidal, but because they were given defective, outdated armor. Realizing that his ordinary firepower would be a waste of ammunition on the heretics' extremely resilient shields and new armor system, Arbiter knew what he needed to do. Though his useless grunt companions never thought to do it, Arbiter tapped into the power of an ancient Covenant technique passed down from generations, a forbidden, often frowned upon tactic known as With its power, Arbiter needed a single shot from his carbine after overloading their new armor system's shields, though that didn't stop him from wasting more ammo than he needed to out of sheer panic. Wiping out the remaining heretic forces in this first room, he saw his own platoon had died in the skirmish. Maybe they should have stayed in their active camouflage. You know, the one that can last forever. In the next room, through several embarrassing deaths, Arbiter soon realized that the heretic's lack of awareness could be easily exploited through his camouflage. Rather than fighting every enemy, Arbiter picked his battles carefully and then hopped in the elevator. Distracted like a 4-year-old by a bouncing needler, he turned around and was promptly murdered by heretics and sentinels. Though the Arbiter's faith was shaken at this untimely sight, he knew that if they were working with the heretics, then they needed to be killed all the same. And fortunately for the Arbiter, the sentinels were even more vulnerable to the noob combo than the heretics. A single overcharged shot blew them to pieces. Perhaps the ancients never anticipated one to use the noob combo so effectively. After a thrilling, climactic battle in the hangar, the Arbiter knew that the next hallway was probably filled with heretics around every corner. With a single grunt companion he knew would just die, he slowly advanced, using as many plasma grenades, noob combos, and corner cowering tactics that he needed to advance.
Get up! Why don't you get up?
I'm dead, dipshit. Annihilating these heretics at long last, Arbiter came across, surprise motherfucking surprise, more heretics. Whoa.
Arbiter.
Where the fuck did you come from? Though caught off guard by the sudden backup, Arbiter ignored him, knowing full well he'd die in the next wave of heretic. Yup, dead. Did the Prophets seriously think that an Arbiter with a not as new armor system and the Covenant's most useless elites could best a base full of heretics? Proceeding alone once again, Arbiter used his camouflage to catch a heretic off guard. Wait, what? Let's try that again. He did it again! I'm not imagining this shit, right? One more time. What the fuck? Somehow this heretic had senses and reflexes so hyper-aware that he could avoid a plasma grenade being thrown at him in the split second, and never mind.
Sissy.
The fuck did you just call me? Though the Arbiter's journey was filled with so many deaths, one might think he was getting off to dying. His memorization and skill as a warrior eventually caused each battle to be a one-sided massacre. Now energy swords were appearing out of nowhere. This station just kept getting weirder and weirder. Through his deaths, Arbiter learned two things thus far. One is that grunts wielding needlers were the bane of his not-so-new armor system, for the mere sight or sound of a needler firing would cause him to waste an inordinate amount of carbine shots, or simply run. And the second is that somehow hitting these two grunts managed to tip off every single sentinel and elite in a 1-mile radius, while this doesn't alert a single soul. Nonetheless, the Arbiter gracefully used the noob tactic and well-placed plasma grenades to eliminate heretics and sentinels one by one, making skillful use of his camouflage that didn't last forever to weave in and out of combat. Wow. Witnessing the heretic leader perform an unnecessary yet graceful leap forward, the Arbiter cleared out some grunts, stealthed his way past some elites like a true warrior, and hopped into a banshee to begin the search for the heretic leader. What's this button do? Whoa, Jesus, turn it down, holy shit, no, fuck! Okay, there we go. After a climactic battle in the skies that got so boring, the Arbiter decided to bet his life on stealing a banshee a few times. The heretic leader was finally tracked down. With the arrival of more lambs to the slaughter, Arbiter was surprisingly joined by Cutlip himself, who wasted no time in trying to gain alpha status by establishing he wasn't a virgin.
What is it? That stench. I've smelled it before.
Arbiter proceeded through a rather disturbingly familiar setup. Though his comrades were uncertain, he knew from his experience on Alpha Halo that this was none other than the work of the Flood. His contemplation was cut off by the heretic leader suddenly hologram. Listening to him ramble on and Gumbo demand something mind-numbingly moronic, Arbiter and company fended off the Flood with surprisingly few casualties until...
Go, Arbiter! I'll follow when our reinforcements arrive.
I'm sure you will. Knowing that the noob combo would be ineffective against shieldless Flood hosts, and an energy sword would put him at risk due to his not-so-new armor system, the Arbiter's answer to the Flood came in the very sentinels the Ancients used to battle them. Picking up one of their weapons, the Arbiter melted and shredded through the parasite alongside two elites in what was undoubtedly the longest and most drawn-out elevator ride of his goddamn life. Though what astonished him more than the ride duration was the fact that somehow, neither he nor these elites died. While death held very little meaning for the Arbiter personally, given how swiftly and easily his previous reinforcements would die, he was more astonished they survived. For their excellent performance, Arbiter dubbed them Bill and Ted. Withdrawing from the elevator, Arbiter proceeded to a room filled with his two opposing factions locked in combat. Given his current equipment, he waited for the Flood's unsurprising victory and then pressed the wrong goddamn button, resulting in another unnecessary death. This time, the Arbiter meleeed the window and mowed down Flood forces one after another with his superior battle tactics. When the room was filled with heretics, Arbiter made a dash for the nearest plasma pistol and carbine, eliminating their forces with the supreme power of the noob combo. And to his dismay, Bill and Ted had fallen in combat. Their excellent adventure had come to an end. Filled with vengeful wrath, the Arbiter picked up an energy sword, callous of the peril it put him in, and proceeded to slaughter every— What the fuck? The Arbiter slaughtered every last parasite that stood in his way. With them and some heretics out of his way, the Arbiter seamlessly breezed past more waves of cannon fodder he couldn't be bothered to deal with, tactfully using his camouflage that didn't last forever until he came across...
NANI?! お前はもう死んでいる。
Die. die. What the fuck? It seemed as though their leader's armor system was so new that it could even withstand the noob combo. Destroying his shields and firing countless shots into his back, Arbiter witnessed Clifford the Big Red Heretic casually take a midnight walk through the woods while being shot in the back no less than 18 times before gracefully leaping back into the closet. And surprise, surprise, looks like Two-Face finally showed up with those reinforcements he waited for. Maybe if he walked a little faster instead of screaming for the Arbiter to kill the Heretic now, none of this shit would have happened. With one frustration piling onto another so far, Arbiter had enough of this station's bullshit and decided that the best course of action would be to cut the whole thing loose and take out every single heretic and flood with him. Not like dying mattered to him much anyway. Once again, unwilling to take the time to combat three factions more interested in killing each other, Arbiter casually strolled past the spatially inept sentinels to cut this station loose. Scaring Courage the cowardly heretic from his hidey hole, Arbiter rode past yet another awkward lighting change and proceeded to make his way downtown, walking fast past numerous flood, heretics, and sentinels barring his path. Crashing his Banshee and walking inside at 10 frames per second, Arbiter reached the heretic leader at long last, and was so pissed off at this point, he made the surprisingly moronic mistake of commanding him to turn around, rather than just, murdering him. Though precedent did establish that trying to kill the heretic leader with the noob combo while he was turned away showed that it wasn't very effective. After that, the Arbiter didn't know what was more miraculous: the fact that the heretic leader had been working with the Oracle, or how Arbiter didn't fucking die after being shot like 40 times. Whether it was destiny or nothing short of a miracle enabled by the rings, the Arbiter was not going to squander this opportunity. The heretic leader launched out two obvious holograms to battle him. Arbiter, confident that holograms would in no way be able to actually kill. What the fuck? How? They're fucking holograms! They don't exist! Why do their weapons do damage? Better yet, why do they suddenly kill him in the blink of an eye when just a few seconds ago he managed to withstand 40 shots? Arbiter's task was simple: kill the heretic leader. But were it so easy? So far today, he was stripped of his status and title, branded by King Kong, forced to stare at his ass, donned an armor system that wasn't new, encountered heretics that ranged from being spatially inept to hypersensitive, randomly changing lighting, appearing energy swords, flood, bitch-faced McGee talking into his ear, and now, after all of that, he had to put up with holograms that did damage. Fortunately, Arbiter had as many tries as he needed to nail this asshole to the ground, and with countless deaths, his victory was at long last secured. And then his conversation with the Oracle was swiftly interrupted by the incredibly inaudible albino Hulk.
That is the Oracle. Okay.